But that's okay. He's out on business, and we have a meeting to hold, so we're going to call it. Call it to order, and the first item coming up is approval of the agenda. Any
Motion to
changes?
approve.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a second. Any comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have an agenda. Next up, we have approval of the minutes. Hopefully you've had time to look over those. And we have, my computer runs a little slow. I see just one set for the 15th. Any
Move to
questions?
approve.
Got it.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any comments? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Minutes are approved. That's going to move us into the no action part of our meeting. And the first thing up, it looks like, and she's coming up, is our director, Ms. Kervin, for a school nutrition grant award.
Yes.
Yeah, good evening, everyone.
Welcome.
Thank you for letting me be here. Glad to go first, I have to say. Really excited, but also very relieved that we have been awarded a grant for our summer meals program, a grant in the value of $20,500 from No Kids Hungry. That's really, really fantastic news. We are getting to the point now where if we don't win these grants, it's going to really create some issues with us running the program in the way that we want to run it. So we're absolutely delighted with them. You saw in your notes the breakdown of the award, and it makes for a much better program that we're offering. So thank you very much for that. The second thing that I would just like to throw into, we received notification last week also that we have won an award for a Lunch Trailblazer Award, and that's a nationally recognized award for us working hard at lowering sodium in our lunchtime menus. So that's, when I get some more information on that, I'll share that, but we're very excited when that sort of thing happens. So behind the scenes, our team works very, very hard, and it's nice when you get a little bit of recognition to show what's going into that.
Yes. Yeah.
Just I'd like to offer an invitation for on Thursday. We're having a farm fun day at John Cotton Taylor from 9 till 12, and we've got some fun things happening there. A couple of years ago, we did it down at Snowdon, had a great day. I'm really pleased looking at the temperatures. It's going to be a bit cooler this Thursday than it was 2 years ago, and that is really, really good news. But if anybody would like to come along and see what we're doing, you're very, very welcome to join us.
What date is that?
The 8th, Thursday, day after
Thursday.
tomorrow,
This Thursday.
At what
Yeah.
time?
9 till 12.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Just a stop by, drive by, whatever you'd like to do. If you're very welcome to join us.
Okay.
That's all I have for you. Thank you very much indeed. And please excuse me, I will be stepping out to the meeting now because I am going to a community forum to discuss summer meals with one of our community partners in
Thank you for
town.
finding the money
was-
and going above and beyond. Good job.
You're welcome.
Well,
Thank you very much.
and as a reminder, for those in the audience who don't know, Ms. Kervin is North Carolina's reigning State
Yes.
School Nutrition Director of the Year. So congratulations, Ms. Kervin.
Thank you.
And we're going to say that every time you come before us.
Every time I see
Every
you.
time you come before us, we're going to say it. Thank you, Ms. Kervin.
We so appreciate the grants that she
Absolutely.
chases to feed our children during the
Yes.
summer.
She does a great job, and her whole staff does. Item number 4.2 carries us to a North Carolina Center for Resilience and Learning, I believe I'm reading here. And who do we have presenting?
I'd like to introduce Elizabeth and Orlando, and so feel free to come on up. And we're so excited to have them. Members of the board, this is in direct response to conversations that individuals and you as a board have had just around character development, the wellness of our students and our adults inside of our school system. And so we've asked two different programs to come here tonight to present to you some ideas about how they can help the students of Beaufort County. So with that, Elizabeth, if you can introduce yourself, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you all so much for having us. My name is Elizabeth DeConti. I'm here with Orlando Dobbin from our team. And I want to start by just sharing a little bit of background about who we are and where we're housed. Our Center for Resilience and Learning is part of the Public School Forum of North Carolina. That's our larger umbrella nonprofit organization. We are a statewide organization that is advocating and doing research on behalf of public education across the state. We also have three main centers. Ours is one of those that is the kind of do side of the organization where we are out in the field working directly with districts, schools, and educators in different capacities. A little background on our center, how we got started. We started through a study group process that was led about 10 years ago as part of the forum's research work, looking at this issue of childhood trauma and the impact that trauma and stress have on brain development and student learning, specifically in the school setting. And out of that study came a recommendation to launch a pilot program here in the 2017-2018 school year, small in 2 counties in North Carolina, that was similar to some early work being done in a few other states around trauma-informed schools. And then fast forward to where we are now. Like I said, we started in the 2017-2018 school year in 2 districts. As of this current year, we have provided some level of training or coaching work in 39 districts across the state, as far west as Swain County, and as far east as Elizabeth City, Pasquotank. Most of our partner districts and where we got started was in eastern North Carolina and a number of counties that are surrounding you all. We partner with Duke Center for Child and Family Policy as our evaluation and research partner, and we'll talk about this in a second as well, but just since COVID in the last 4 to 5 years, we have certainly seen the growing need and interest from districts like you all, recognizing the youth mental health crisis and wanting to reach out for some supports for staff and students within your schools. And then I touched on this already a little bit, but here are some of the surrounding districts near you all in Region 1 and Region 2 specifically that we're in, or that we will be starting in this fall. There are a handful of districts in the Northeast that we are just starting partnerships in now as well, and beginning in those schools in the fall. But you can see some of our longer standing partnerships in this area as well, including Pitt County and Elizabeth City Pasquotank schools especially.
Good evening. My name is Orlando Dobbin. I'm really grateful to be here. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
So our model kind of has 2 core components. One is school-wide trainings and professional development, where we try to equip teachers and staff with skills and strategies to support their students. And then the other one is ongoing coaching and technical assistance with school teams. And we have a 6-step process. So we start with talking with the principal, making sure that our work aligns with their mission and their vision for their school. Then we create a resilience team, and the resilience team is kind of the primary vehicle for the work that we do. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that resilience team does. And that resilience team is kind of tasked with coming up with an action plan on how to implement some trauma-sensitive practices into their school. And so the training is composed of what you see on the screen. So we start with defining what trauma is and what adverse childhood experiences are and how they impact the growing development of a child's brain and how that impacts students' learning and their behavior. We also talk about toxic stress and how stress impacts one's... Is it okay if I stand up?
Yes.
Go
All right,
right
I'm gonna
ahead.
stand up. I just gotta be able to move my body a little bit.
Move around if you would like. It's
All right,
fine.
I won't dance because I'm not a good dancer.
Oh, that'd
but
be
I'll
all
just-
right.
It's fine.
But we talk about toxic stress and how stress impacts one's stress response system and how that can impede one's ability to be able to serve and support their students. And then lastly, we help schools develop and build a resilient environment by focusing on 4 core buckets. So the first one is staff wellness. We believe that staff can't support their students if they don't know how to support themselves. Secondly is creating safe and supportive relationships. The third bucket is clear structures and routines within schools. And then the fourth bucket is helping students develop life skills and regulation skills. And then the coaching part of the model looks like the coaches help build a resilience team, which I mentioned earlier. And the resilience team primary objective and goal is to take the research around trauma and the stress response system and figure out what it looks like to incorporate trauma-sensitive practices into our school. So we don't have a one-size-fits-all model. We really try hard to make sure we create strategies and systems that support the schools that we are in. So that team, that resilience team, they identify what are the strategies and what are the areas where we already are doing a great job of supporting students, and then what are the areas of growth that we have, and then how can we create an action plan to meet the needs. So that team will create a goal and an action plan, like I said, and then all throughout the process, as we implement the plan, we're monitoring and seeing the impact that's having on students. So some examples of some initiatives that we've done with schools are, there was one school that felt like their students really had a difficult time with heightened emotional states. So that school developed a reset space where students could go to be able to regulate their emotions and calm down. We helped schools implement systems like morning meetings, staff wellness lounge, check-in, check-out programs. One of the schools that I'm in right now, they created and implemented a tap-in, tap-out program, which was a system where if a student or if a teacher felt like they were feeling overwhelmed or stressed out, they could access a system of support where an adult could come and relieve them for 10 to 15 minutes so that they can be able to calm down and then go back into the classroom and work hard.
So a few key takeaways just to highlight with what Orlando went through and shared about how we partner with schools and what our model looks like. One, the majority of our work is with the adults and the educators in the building. It's really about building awareness, creating that culture shift within the school building, and leaning on them to make the decisions and set the goals and create the strategies that they want to put in place and that they feel like are best for their student population in their school building. We also really try to incorporate the MTSS process into the work that we're doing. So thinking about how we know that schools and districts are doing a great job, and most of them tell us they feel like they're really well supported and know what they're doing when it comes to incorporating academics into their MTSS process. But when it comes to behavior supports, that's where many schools are kind of newly starting down that path. Our work is supported by ongoing research and evaluation, like we named with our research partner. Our coaches, like Orlando, are spread out all across the state. Most of them are local to the communities in which they serve, and they're all experienced educators, have been classroom teachers, school counselors, behavior support specialists, so they know and understand schools and school culture. Like I said, we really aim to meet schools where they are, and we have our model, but it's flexible in how it looks in schools depending on the need and the direction those staff want to go in. Leadership buy-in with principals is really important for us. And then lastly, we've really seen how this work has transformed and changed schools that we've worked in. We know that training workshops are really important, but where we see the true change is that coaching support, having a coach that's embedded in that school community and building relationships with staff and there for 2 full years after initial training happens. So a little bit of just some of our data and research that we wanted to share with you from districts that we have worked with up to this point. So we do anonymous staff surveys, and this is a little bit of data that we've pulled from those, showing 80% of staff that we've worked with agree or strongly agree that our training improved their practices or knowledge in these following areas. I'm not going to read everything on the screen, but you can see what some of those are around improvement in knowledge on ACEs and stress, how they support their students, how they're building relationships and new strategies with students. And then these are a few quotes as well, some more qualitative data that we've collected through surveys and focus groups that we have done with staff over the years. I'll just read the top one that one staff member shared. I came to a greater understanding that behaviors just don't start out of nowhere. There's always a reason. We just have to find the when, where, what, and how it all began. And then lastly, this is a sample of some administrative data that we have collected from one district where we were working with 5 schools. And so they shared data with us around suspensions and discipline referrals. So comparing the year prior to us starting our partnership and coaching work with them to the end of the year that we first led our training and coaching partnership with them. And you can see it certainly varies, but you can see the decreases and the changes in both suspensions and discipline referrals.
So I'm just going to share a little bit about the why behind our work. So ACEs comes from a study that was done in California where they kept noticing that a lot of the adults that had chronic health issues had all experienced some type of adverse childhood experience. So they wanted to dive deep into what was going on and do a study. So they studied over 17,000 participants to see what the correlation was between one's experiences in childhood and their adult health conditions. And so these were some of the results that came from that study. First was first thing they noticed was the prevalence of adverse childhood experiences. As you can see, 64% of people reported having at least one ACE. And there was a study that was done in North Carolina recently that correlated with some of this data that was done in California, where they found that about 56% of individuals have experienced at least one adverse childhood experience, and then 30% of people have experienced 2 or more. And that's significant because students who experience 3 or more ACEs have a whole host of, are potentially at risk of having a host of negative outcomes. So they are more likely to score lower than their peers on standardized tests. They're 2.5 more likely to have a failing grade, 32 more times likely to be labeled as learning disabled, and more likely to be suspended or expelled. And the reason behind this is because of how stress and trauma impacts one's brain. I'm not a neuroscientist, so I won't go all the way into the research, but just to give you a taste of it, is when one experiences stress, it activates your stress response system, and typically that's a good thing. You want your body to have more adrenaline and more cortisol to fight off a threat. But what happens with somebody who's experienced consistent adverse childhood experiences or traumatic experiences is that their stress response system becomes overly sensitive, and so they interpret as threat things that aren't threatening. So you have a student who's in the classroom and they're not able to focus on what the teacher's saying or what they're learning. They're worried about if they're going to get hit or if somebody's going to say something that's going to make them feel unsafe. And so our team has also found that there's an increased need of support because of students' growing mental health needs. So at least one student in 5 in North Carolina has a mental health or substance abuse disorder, and this mental health need has only grown since the pandemic. So there's been a 46% increase in youth with 1 or more major depressive episodes, and then a 70% increase in the rate of children being discharged from emergency facilities with a behavioral health condition. And we do the work that we do because research has shown that students who report a sense of being cared for or feeling a sense of belonging in their school have a whole host of positive outcomes. So they're a third less likely to report persistent feelings of sadness or hopelessness, and about 50% less likely to report attempting or seriously considering suicide. And studies also show that when you create practices that support the well-being of staff and teachers in the building, that it has benefits for the mental health students. So this is why we have the 4 buckets that we have. We start with self-care and collective care, so helping a school develop practices and procedures to help the well-being of their staff. And then we focus on 3 core resilience building strategies with the students, which are warm and responsive relationships, safe and structured environments, and life skills and regulation skills. And we believe that our work directly aligns with the DPI's Portrait of a Graduate. Through the DPI Portrait of a Graduate, they've identified 7 core competencies that they feel students need to possess in order to be successful in the 21st century. And so our hope is that we can help schools and teachers create environments where these skills can be developed and enhanced so that they can be successful in the real world.
So to close us out, we want to share what our proposed implementation with Beaufort County Schools would potentially be. So we are proposing to provide our full model of the training paired with the ongoing coaching in the 4 high schools in Beaufort County. This would provide training with all the staff within those 4 schools and would have a resilience coach like Orlando described as part of our model that would be working closely with those 4 schools, providing the training, working really closely and leading those resilience teams and providing other implementation and coaching support within those buildings. We would also have part of our evaluation process, which would mainly be the anonymous staff surveys that we do at the beginning and end of each year. And then the implementation and partnership with the district's 4 high schools as described here for 1.5 years is already secured. The funding is already secured by grant money from the district. And then this is our references slide of just naming some of the places where we pulled some of our research and statistics. Thank you all. I know that was a lot of information thrown at you really quickly, and just appreciate your time and allowing us to come share with you.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Board, any questions from anybody?
It looks like
Yes.
the training implementation, all that just goes completely across all the staff.
Correct. Yeah, we tried to include both classified and unclassified staff. So sometimes that can be, we have to offer it a couple different times to allow for different schedules. But yes, we would like, in our training, we would ideally want any staff member who works with students, builds relationships, is involved in any interaction with kids so that they all have the same information.
Okay.
So would Beaufort County Schools have any responsibility in some of the funding?
The district has secured grant funds, has already secured grant funds that would support this work in the partnership with the 4 schools.
Yeah, this was part of the award that we announced last month in those 3 segments. So yes, this will be grant funded. And I just want to thank Orlando because he's here for a second time. He's already done a presentation with our high school principals.
Okay.
And as a result of some of that feedback, we've invited them to take the next step to have conversation with all of you.
Any other questions?
I just have
Sure,
a
Ms.
statement.
Walker.
Thank you, number one, thank you very much. Whatever direction we go in or don't go in, I want to acknowledge the fact that on a daily basis, our principals, our admin teams, and our teachers are expected to be psychology majors in the classroom. And I don't think we're being fair to them because they're there to teach. But yet, when the students walk in the classroom, they bring all of their problems, however minor or major they are. And the teacher cannot move ahead without trying to get some sort of semblance around this student. So, like I said, I don't know what direction we'll go in, but I do want to acknowledge, coming from a family of teachers, every day, there's something every day that prevents them from digging in and starting, to teach right out of the gate. And, but thank you, I'm sure this is a good program. And they're doing it in Pitt County with success?
Yes, Orlando's our coach in Pitt County. We've been working with Pitt County since 2018, 2019. Do you want to speak about the
Sure.
2 schools you're in?
Sure. So they started with 2 elementary schools in Pitt County, and so far it's been a lot of fun, but it's also been, I think, impactful. The last survey that we did with the staff members showed that they were really responsive to the training that we did and felt like the access to information about trauma and what students are going through enabled them to be able to do their jobs.
I can see where elementary children actually bring more into the classroom as far as a type of trauma than our high school students, many times. I would also imagine that it depends on the rural setting of the school, of the county. But anyway, thank you.
Anyone else?
I'm just wondering,
Sure.
how much time constraints would this be on staff members to receive this training? Just give me some idea of how this works.
Sure. So our intro training, we try to make it as minimal as possible. Our first training is 2 hours. We ideally try to do that on one of the work days in August prior to students coming back. And then usually in most of our schools at some point in the middle of the year, we do another 2-hour training that's also typically done on a work day. And that looks a little different in each school, kind of depending on where they are in the process by that point. And if they've set a goal or chosen a strategy or something that they want to implement, then we try to tailor that kind of part 2 training to what they're focusing on and what the team has chosen. But 2 hours and at the beginning of the year, 2 hours in the middle of the year is the training commitment.
Thank you.
And then the resilience team that we have, they will usually meet once a month, for about an hour.
Okay.
Can you give us some examples of what an adverse childhood experience is? I've read this in actually one of your attachments here. And I think sometimes we take for granted what normal is and how some of our students live in reality. So just give us some examples of what they are and how they're defined and how they're not.
Sure. So the original study looked at 10 different types that they named, and since then there have been other studies that have broadened and added more to that list, but the initial study with what Orlando discussed and what was shared in the slides looked at different types of abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, different types of neglect happening in the home, and then different types of household events such as domestic violence, a parent or caregiver who's been incarcerated, a parent or caregiver experiencing a mental health challenge or substance abuse, the loss of a parent or caregiver. So those were the 10 that were included in that initial study with the statistics that are in your slides. And yeah, in that initial study, you can imagine back in the mid-90s, there was a lot of surprise by how high those numbers were
Right.
with those types of experiences.
Yep. Thank you for that.
Any other questions? No, go ahead, Ms. Booth, go ahead.
Did I understand you to say that this is for all students?
All ages,
High school.
yeah, all ages.
High school, or you starting with elementary and going through high school, or is this just
The
For
proposed,
high schools.
Yeah, the proposal is for high school right
for high school? Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I just have one.
No, go ahead, Don.
Orlando, did you say you met with the principals?
Yes.
So how did that go?
Well, to be honest, you all know principals, they can be a tough crowd. But I thought it went really well. They were very engaged and focused their whole time, and I thought that they could see the need that there was for some additional information and support around how to support students who have trauma. I think they all had like stories about students who they could see this kind of work impacting.
Thank you.
We have the best principals, just saying.
Yeah, we don't,
have the best.
I don't know about that tough comment. I kind of tend to agree with him. Any other board members? Go ahead, Gary.
Just a comment here. I suppose in the past, before the programs and all were being developed, that the school counselors and the teachers were just kind of on their own, possibly, potentially without training, to assist the students. Is that, am I thinking that that's the way it's operated for many, many years?
No. So several years ago, Renee Boyd, former employee, former principal and director of EC, actually helped author a grant called Project Aware. And Beaufort County Schools is one of 3 districts in the state, including Cleveland County and Rockingham County, that was awarded such grant, which looked at helping educators with trauma-informed instruction. And so after that grant expired, and then coming through COVID, we found challenges of finding something that would align to the board's belief system. And so to that, we've invited them back to the table based on their outreach and based off of what principals have been asking for. And so we have had things in the past, but a lot of it has been grant funded in that regard. And so now we're looking for new opportunities based on new circumstances of where our kids are today.
But as far as responsibility, say in the school in times past, it's typically fallen to the guidance counselors.
It's typically fallen to your administrative team, your guidance counselors, and it's really fallen to the teacher or teacher assistants. As you may recall, we now have, come June 30th, 1 social worker for 5,483 kids, 1 school psychologist, but we have an awful lot of professional educators trying to really help young people.
To add to what Gary, you're questioning about counselors, I was down at Southside with a counselor meeting this past Thursday, and I tell them all the time, I'm amazed at all the things that do fall on the shoulders of the counselors. And speaking of, can I ask her now?
Yeah.
But speaking of counselors, we have Dr. Burris from Southside in the audience. Would you, I'm not trying to put you on the spot. Would you like, well, not really, but would you like to make any comments? Or you're welcome to do so since I see that you're here.
Yes, thank you.
And this is from Southside High School.
I'm Jennifer Burris, I'm one of the school counselors at Southside, and I just totally see the benefit of a program like this for sure. In our school improvement plan at Southside this year, we implemented something, but we partnered with ECU and their psychology department for some trauma-informed care training. That was staff-wide, but it was just for this year, so I'm really excited to see that some will be continued
Thank you, Dr. Burris. I felt you could kind of pull it together for us. Donald,
Yeah,
sure.
one final question I have. Did you say that this program would last 1.5 years, funded 1.5 years? Would it be extended for?
So the current funding that's been secured, the grant funding, will get us through 1.5 years. The plan and hope is to complete the 2 full years, since when we typically partner with schools, we commit for 2 years of that coaching piece. But that gives us some time, both on our end, the district's end, to either renew grants. We also have a lot of grant funding ourselves that allows us to provide the work in districts at no cost to them. So with 1.5 years, we kind of have time to plan for that last 6 months with funding.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, as we
Gary
said.
has a question.
Oh, go ahead, Gary.
So, I would think that a big majority of these instances, or these ACEs, begin at home. And does this program try to reach beyond what you can control at school, or does it actually reach out to the home environment?
So our primary focus is at school. We know that we can't control the home environment and what happens at home. Our goal is to help schools create a safe and supportive environment when students are with them. We have, however, done a handful of trainings with families on like parent nights, where that's something that resilience team in that school wants us to do and is a focus and a goal area for them. So some of our coaches have provided some training, some presentations as part of parent and family nights as well. So that can be a piece of the work, kind of depending on what area or direction the school wants to go in.
Okay, so if that wraps it up, this is a non-action item, so this gives you time to go back, look through the material again, and it will come back before us. When our chairman gets back, they'll work up a schedule for that, and you'll see this again. Thank you very much for your
Thank
time.
you.
Thank you all so much.
Appreciate it. A lot of information. Good information. That moves us along to 4.3, Character Strong, and I believe we have, is this Ashley Benetton?
Yes.
Is welcome. Come on up front.
And as Ashley joins our team, Ms. Booth, we're now working with Character Strong to look at the elementary side of things. And in full disclosure, the Board of Ed had looked at something in previous years, and Ashley and I met at a North Carolina ASCD meeting where she did a presentation for superintendents, and through that was invited to come work with our principals. So she's actually presented in front of our principals. Lisa Taylor, Suzanne Brantley has done some work with Character Strong. Alicia Vosberg, Lynn Whittington has done some work with Character Strong, and your board chair has done some work with Character Strong. So to that, this has been a pretty in-depth conversation, but to continue on focusing around student wellness and our employee wellness in that regard, I'd like to introduce Ashley.
Welcome. We have 4 attachments. Does the board have the one pulled up that she's showing on the screen?
Well,
Or you can watch it on the
You
screen?
got the first one?
Okay.
It's gonna be the last one.
It's going to be the board presentation at the end, I believe. Okay, thank you.
And just for awareness, I have my computer here because I do have someone with me, so I wasn't just bringing something along. So this is John Norland, who is our CEO. He's actually based in Washington, but wanted to also be here with us all today. And so
Hello, John.
This is
Hey,
John.
hello, John.
Welcome.
Awesome. Well, I am so excited to be able to be here with you all and really appreciate this opportunity. My name is Ashley, and I am a director of school supports here at Character Strong, and I'm excited to just share a little bit about our resources here. So I wanted to just start off with this quote from our Chief Development Officer, Dr. Clay Cook. He says, engagement is the strongest predictor of learning and is influenced and can be improved by practices that educators have direct control over. And I like to start with this just because engagement and this piece and its impact on learning is a big part of what we support with through Character Strong. And so we have resources that are not just tier 1, but then as you heard in the previous conversation, when students are coming in with different needs, what do we do then, right? As educators, how do we support? And so we also have tier 2 and tier 3 resources as well, and I'll go through what each of those include. So we support over 10,000 schools in the United States. If you look specifically at North Carolina, these are some of our partner districts that we've been able to work closely with for several years. And this is especially near and dear to my heart because I used to teach in Northampton County and was a school counselor in Durham. And so as I get to share with you all and see these different partnerships in supporting our students here in North Carolina, it just makes me really excited. So as we talk through and think through the work that we do, we oftentimes like to include the people in the classroom, our educators. And as we have been talking to them and hearing what are the different pain points, what are the things that are getting in the way of learning in our schools, these are the ones that you'll see here that we're most commonly hearing. So student behavior, which is not just like the disruptive behaviors in class, while it does include that, it might also be some of those quieter behaviors that we sometimes miss with students, but we know they're carrying something and it's impacting their learning. There's also student attendance and engagement, staff buy-in, implementation, and then student mental health as well. We also know that schools are facing different things and sometimes have different policies that they might want to address. And so in our Tier 1 solutions, we have these different things that are also included. Resources with bullying prevention, substance abuse, suicide prevention. And these are additional resources that are included, but you all would be able to utilize as you all would see fit within your school and in your district. As we look at the evidence surrounding Character Strong, we are very excited to be able to say that we oftentimes see an improvement in things like school safety or safe behavior, student engagement, that self-management and self-efficacy. But then we're also seeing a decrease in things like absenteeism and truancy. And we know that's important because if our kids are not in school, they're not learning. They're not getting the things that they need from the teachers in the classroom setting. And so this is a big part of the work that we have as well. And so like I said, we have resources around Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. So I'm just going to jump on in and start sharing about our Tier 1 solutions. And this is specifically for kindergarten through 8th grade. So when we look at our Tier 1 resources, we really do prioritize and want to emphasize how can we make sure that we are being as proactive with our students as possible and living more in the proactive than the reactive. And so some of those, like we know that students are going to come in with varying needs, different things that at the drop of the hat you have to address. But we also know that there might be some things that we can do to support an environment that is successful for teaching and learning for students so that should those things come up, it's not going to overwhelm our systems. It's not going to overburden people in the schools, and they are going to be able to address them in ways that are going to feel good for both the students and their learning, and then the educators as well. And so when we look at our Tier 1 solutions, we have the Tier 1 curriculum, and I'll go into each of these as well. We have our family and community resources. We have some resources for leaders and within the campus, and then also some data tracking and progress monitoring tools to be able to support here too. And so we really believe that this is really going to start with leadership and really making sure that our leaders in the building, both our administrators who are leading our teachers and different educators within the building, but also our teachers who are leading our students, that they have all of the resources that are going to make sure that they're feeling well equipped to be able to do this work and support the students in this way. And so we have different administration and coaching tools and different resources built into our system. We also know, I spoke right at the beginning about engagement. And when we think about engagement, we're thinking not only about students doing the work, but do they also know the purpose behind the work and how it connects with their learning within the school and then beyond. I know when I was teaching sometimes I would give a student an assignment and they would do it and it would be complete, but were they actually taking their time and learning and really trying their best within that actual work that they have? And so we know that this can especially be challenging in the middle school setting or in our older students. And so what we provide here are different ways that educators throughout the entire school day, how can they support with that level of engagement with their students in easy ways that's not going to overburden them. And so you'll see some 60-second strategies that are included here. And then with our elementary students, we have different resources that can support them throughout the day as well. And so our thought is we really want to make sure that we're not disrupting things that are already working within your school buildings, like your systems and your structures that you already have. But how can we provide educators those additional tools and resources that they're oftentimes looking for anyways, and making sure that it's in one spot that they can integrate throughout the day to be able to support our students? And when we look at these behavioral supports that we like to provide, we like to say that the real behavior support starts before that escalation even happens. And so some of the tools that you'll see in our Tier 1 solutions, we have an attendance toolkit, behavior response, and also bullying prevention. And so the behavioral supports, it includes supports for the adults, supports for how can we teach some of the students the behaviors that might be impacting their learning and the learning of their classmates. And then what does it look like to actually create a plan for the students and the educators to be able to make sure that they are moving forward in a way that is going to support them in the learning in the classroom. Another thing is attendance supports. I love this portion, especially because if you think about the day, especially with our younger kids, from the time they get on the bus, if they're bus riders, to the time that they go get breakfast, or they might also see a front office staff, they are getting in contact and touch with a lot of different adults in the building before they even get to their classroom teacher. And so what we provide are different supports for everyone in the building to be able to support with the attendance and making sure it's a space that students are feeling is really conducive for learning and a place that they want to be. Another thing that you will see, I had mentioned before that oftentimes teachers are having to piecemeal all of these different resources together. So we try to make sure that it is as easy as possible. And one of the things that you will see is that we really support with flexible classroom lessons. And so thinking specifically about what are the students needing that I am serving today, and how can we support in a way that is going to fit the structure of our classroom. We also know that teachers and educators have a lot of prep that they're already doing. So how can we make sure that there is as minimal prep as possible? And so what we do is we say low burden, high impact. How can we make this as low burden as possible while supporting our students in the most impactful ways here? And so the resources that you'll see, there are going to be 5 components to it. And these are different pieces that you'll be able to use throughout your school day as you all see fit. We try to make sure that it is relevant, make sure that it is engaging, the students are interested, and again, it's going to be really impactful for those life skills that we know students need, not only in the school setting, but then also beyond. And so life skills might be things like, let's say students are working on group projects and they are working on like their collaboration skills. That might be something that they might be able to get some support with, or even focus. How do we stay organized? What does it look like to set a goal and actually work towards that goal? I've also oftentimes seen students who are learning a lot within the school day, and then let's say they get a test, and all of a sudden, all of these feelings of anxiety start coming, and all of the things that they have learned and grown in, they're not able to show what they know because they're having some problems, just challenges, processing some of those emotions. And so how can we support kids with that too? This piece, I think, is just really important for us. We have really built this in a way that is also for families and communities. And so one of the ways is we want to make sure that any families or students who speak Spanish are also able to understand the different resources that we have here. And then we also have ready-made newsletters and resources built out for families so they know what is it exactly that we're talking to our students about. What are ways that you can reinforce some of these things at home? And it really is a partnership between the schools and the families. There's also different resources to support students in leadership opportunities. And so you'll see things like ways that you might be able to support both in the school and then also outside in your community as well. And then when we look specifically at data, how do we know that things are working? And then how do we also do it in a way that's not going to overwhelm our educators with trying to collect all of these different data points? And so what we have are built out systems for the educator, the schools, the districts to be able to really get a sense of what usage looks like and how it is really influencing and impacting the students and the behavior and the learning within the classroom setting. So when you look at some of these behaviors that might go beyond the Tier 1 interventions, we really like to say that it's not just a curriculum. We have a toolkit of supports, like small groups or individual resources that can support our students. And so you heard in the previous presentation, a lot of our students are coming in with different needs. Sometimes it might be things around anxiety. Sometimes it is that trauma. Maybe there's depression or some executive functioning needs. And then in the schools, we're trying to figure out, how do we support our students in these ways? What resources do we pull from? And so we try to make sure that we are giving our educators, again, low burden tools that can really impact our students in these areas that will then be reflected in their learning within the classroom. Just like with Tier 1, we understand the value of family and educator partnership. And so you'll see that we have resources not just for our students, but also for families and for the educators too, just so we can really make sure that we're having that clean wraparound with our students. This is an example of what the skills curriculum looks like. You'll see that we also want to make sure that it's not going to be a heavy lift for time. So the content is about 12 to 15 minutes in these, and then it follows a structure that's similar to in the classroom. The I do, let's do this together, and then let me see you practice this. Just like in Tier 1, with the Tier 2 and Tier 3 supports, let's say that our students are not responding to some of the things that we're doing on that Tier 1 level, and they have specific needs. They're not coming into the school building, and we're trying to figure out what is it that's keeping them from coming to school. You're gonna have those attendance supports for more of those intensive needs too. And then there's also a problem-solving tool so that educators are really working within a team and with a team to figure out what would be the best means to support the students in a way that is going to be low burden again for them, but still going to really get to what might be impacting the students and the behaviors and their wellness. Here are some other progress monitoring tools that are embedded. It allows from the district lens and even the school lens, who are those that are facilitating things with our students? What are the actual interventions? How do we track progress? Are educators engaging in the professional development that is available as well? So lots and lots of pieces that the data is addressing here. The last couple of things I wanted to just speak to our partnership. Just like we believe in the partnership with families and the schools, we want to make sure that we are partnering with the district as much as we can and supporting you all through that process. And so you'll see from weeks 1 to 3 and then even beyond, how can we make sure that you all are feeling prepared all the way through? How can we make sure that you're utilizing everything optimally and really getting seeing the results that we want to with students and their learning. And then the great thing is with the proposal that we have, it would be for 2 years and it's fully funded by the grant. And so, yeah, nothing would come out of pocket for the district here.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, you're welcome.
Board, you have some questions? I know there's a lot of information being shared tonight.
I know, and that was, sometimes I get real excited to
But
talk
that's
about it.
why it's a non-action.
I have a
item.
question.
Sure, Ms. Walker?
I have a question, and I really, to Orlando in the back, I meant to ask this, and I didn't. But we have a crisis team within Beaufort County Schools, and we do have quite a few crises, is that plural?
We have lately.
As do most any public school system. So in that event, do you help us sometime, because every crisis may be very different, do you send a team or some sort of support to help us navigate? Not that our crisis team isn't capable, they are, but even they might need some support. Do you provide that?
I'm going to let John speak to this, just because I know that he has worked a lot with different districts, especially those that have been in crises. John, would you be able to speak to that?
Yeah.
Hopefully.
And actually, let me know if it's hard for people to hear me coming from the computer. Is the volume okay?
We hear you
Yes.
fine, yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, the direct answer to your question is one of the things that I think makes us unique is that our goal has been to build Character Strong where it's not just a curricula, that it is really about supporting not just the key, which is ultimately the adults that are serving the work, but also how are we implementing the resources. And so we've really built a team that when we have had districts who have had any form of a crisis, whether that's providing resources to those that are leading it, whether it's meeting with that team. We actually have the expertise and people that can support that based on what your needs are. You know, in the proposal that we put together, it's not like on-site support for that is in that proposal, but we would absolutely step in, support wherever you would need us, and have people under Dr. Clayton Cook's team who could support that. And we've done that in so many cases, whether it's been in Texas or in Washington in the last few years where that's happened. We have supported in different ways the district. And if you needed someone on site to support that in different ways, we would absolutely be there to support based on what those needs were.
Thank you.
Okay.
I appreciate
Thank
it.
you, John.
And real quickly, Orlando, I'm assuming the same would be for you and your team? Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? If not, as I said, board, that's a lot of information. Take it back. It's a non-action item, so it'll come back to you. And thank you very much for your time.
Good
Thank
job.
you.
Thank y'all so much.
Thank you
Have a
so
good
much.
evening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, John. I keep forgetting about him on the computer, but whatever. That carries us up to curriculum adoption update by Dr. Parker. Sir, would you like to share with us?
Good evening. We'd like to share with you, as per attachment, a proposed list for the Science Curriculum Council team. After receiving direction from this board a few meetings ago, we've worked very hard in the background. I'd like to thank the members of our CNI team as well as our principals with help putting this team together. And this is a non-action item for your consideration.
Thank you for sharing that with us. So it looks like, for the most part, you've got a team ready and willing to serve on this. Is that correct?
Yeah, and based on policy 3100, it's your opportunity to review it, and then we would ask you to approve it on Tuesday the 20th. And should you not, should you have concerns about anyone here, then you would let us know in the intermediate.
Okay. Any questions before we have a chance to really look at everything?
I have
Sure,
just
go ahead,
a
Gary.
question. As far as the parent guardian representatives, like I say, I appreciate, glad to see so much support for the program right now. And the leadership teams, I'm just kind of moving ahead to social studies just for a second to ask a question.
Sure.
Will it be entirely different group of people that will be making up the next committee?
That is
Or-
correct. So, yes, sir. It would be a brand-new process starting all over again. We would submit the same parent interest survey to our principals, who would, again, distribute it to their communities. We would put out the same process for social studies when that time comes. So it would be a different, and the teacher leaders will also be different, because with our teacher leaders, one of the things we wanted to put into place was a certain level of years of experience in teaching in the subject area. And these are science teachers on your science leadership team. You would see a different group of people in a social studies adoption.
Okay, good. Yeah, thank you. That, like I say, this, we kind of stacked things up for the next few years as far as studies that we wanted done, and I wanted to make sure that we weren't just hitting the same people over and over and over again. And there's different interests and different at the parent level as far, and as well as the teacher level. And I just wanted to clarify that.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
Good question, Gary.
It's an excellent list.
Yeah, and I'd like to say thank you to everyone that's willing to step up, parents, employees, everybody willing to take on this additional responsibility. This is a lot, so thank you.
It is time consuming, so.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yep, thanks for raising that hand or having somebody raise it for you, so.
I don't see any broken arms.
I
so-
don't see anybody
Okay.
complaining too much, so they must have raised it on their own, Daniel. If no more questions, we're gonna move on. Dr. Parker, you're still up, testing and accountability.
So 'tis the season we all look forward every time, the end of grade testing period. So there's a couple of attachments to refer to. First is a family guide to assessment. This is something that we posted on our website under the the curriculum adoption and accountability tab. It's been up there for a couple of years now, but basically gives a play-by-play of what assessment generally is, formative, interim, summative, et cetera. It gives a rundown of which assessments are given per grade, and that's as far as that. The other attachment is basically a list of all of our testing dates and testing sites. As you know, by law, end of year test, the whole year has to be given within the last 10 days, and the semester-long course has to be tested within the last 5 days of the school year.
Right, okay. Any questions for Dr. Parker?
I love you providing what are the required state tests. I like knowing that. I find it interesting that, and I'm aware that 12th graders, many only have 1 or 2 classes to complete to be finished.
Yes.
So it's kind of, they've already met these requirements as a junior or even a sophomore. I talked to somebody the other day who said, I have 2 classes left, and I don't know what she's going to do with the rest of her senior year. But anyway, I find it interesting that there's nothing required as a 12th grader as far as the state test. There are plenty of teacher-made exams and that sort of thing.
That's
So I'm
correct.
assuming the reason for that is a lot of that has been met in the 10th and the 11th grade.
That is correct. So, as you know, for most grade levels, at least in the high school, it ends with English 2, Math 1, Math 3, and then biology. Usually those things are done by, in a typical schedule by their sophomore, junior years.
I'm so glad they took that required project. That
Well,
was,
I won't comment on that, but I
Yeah.
always thought that was a handful.
it
too.
was. I had to judge them one year. And, whew.
Yeah, but thank you, Dr. Parker, for the schedule and what she was just saying, because there's always been some confusion around that. But and you're right, if the students hit it hard enough, by the time they enter into 12th grade,
12th grade, they've
it's
finished
a
a lot.
completely different ballgame for them then.
And hopefully they're taking some courses that will help them in higher ed.
Oh, absolutely. Frees up a little bit of anxiety too. Okay, we're going to, sorry? Yeah, go ahead and add to it.
Just want to recognize Ms. Bennett, if you can stand up. Vicki Bennett is headed to retirement, and this is her last go-around with testing and accountability, so I just wanted to recognize her in the room. So this is the go-to person at 6 a.m. in the morning when principals want to know the scores from the previous day. So Vicki, congratulations, and thank you for being here tonight, and thank you for your service.
And some of us you're trying to make feel really old, because I've known her forever and ever, went to church with her. You cannot be ready for retirement. That's just impossible.
You're just a lot older than her.
I'm a lot older. Thank you, Ms. Walker.
You're welcome.
We're going to move right on. We're going to move into something exciting also, and that will, I think it's going to be brick and roof selection for the new school. And I see Mr. Jimmy Hyatt walked in. I lost where he went. Here he is, right over here. So I'm assuming you have something for us, Mr. Hyatt? It's an action item. I hope you have something for us. All right, that's okay. Well, Jamie is welcome to do whatever. I just saw your name on it.
The samples are for your viewing, if you want to get up and look at them. These are the 4 samples that was picked by the team who went to Raleigh. And also the roof samples are laying on the table also, that was also picked.
And can also just mention real quick for those in the audience, they're not, it's the board, yes, they're going to pick and make a decision tonight, but it's not like he just threw the brick and the roof in front of everybody and in 2 minutes they're going to decide. This has been out at the site.
Yes.
Board members have visited the site. They've looked at it. This is kind of the end game for this, right, Mr. Stokes?
That's correct.
So I just want everybody to know that they took it more serious than you bringing a few bricks and we deciding in 2 minutes what to put on the new school. This has had some thought through it, and I've seen enough, but any board members, if you're asking them to walk over, they are welcome to do that.
And can you announce what the recommendation is?
Yes, what is the recommendation?
So the recommendations, when everybody went at the first, what you see, the large brick, that was the majority, like that one. And the color for the roof that was also picked was sandstone.
Jamie, can you bring those bricks over here?
There's one in every crowd.
This is the sandstone that was picked.
FYI, Daniel went to the site and saw these bricks.
Yes, right.
I was just
Charles,
thinking.
yeah, just,
Yeah.
We know what you were doing.
Yeah, I'm good. Well, considering everybody, I think, has already seen this, if there's any questions, now's the time to ask them. If not,
I hadn't.
one
I
question.
hadn't.
okay, sure, you're welcome. Go ahead, Donald.
I hadn't, but I was looking, and my favorite was the first one as well.
Ours too.
Good choice, and since that's what he recommends from everybody else, good job. Yes, sir, Gary.
Jimmy, we went by after visiting the site, and when you invited the board the other day, I drove by, and I think a number of people did.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
The Seagu site over there, because the
Trim. The
trim
window trim is there.
work was there. It was kind of a medium bronze. And there was we talked about a dark bronze or a medium bronze. Is that also part of the consideration tonight?
Is another material that we need to consider when we consider the window frame color. What we're talking about is the actual window frames in the school. And I think we need to have a discussion about that. There is a metallic finish on the ceiling of the entrance. We call it the soffit, but it's a ceiling. And that metallic finish extends all the way around the school in the form of a ceiling that makes the overhang. So I think it's important to consider that soffit material, which is a metallic finish, when we consider the window frame.
Okay.
And I could go on and on and on about, how to consider it. It's probably headed towards a sort of a computer rendering, is what I would recommend, to actually render that brick and the roof, if those two are selected, with the windows, so that we can get a little bit closer to a view of one versus the other. There are some disadvantages in a darker window frame. Aluminum, like a lot of things, aluminum wants to be aluminum. Aluminum doesn't want to be something else. And after about 20 years, maybe a little more, a darker finish that's not a natural anodized aluminum is going to start to chalk and fade. So that's something that we need to think about. Anyway, what I would recommend, once we get beyond the brick and the roof, is let's look at we can develop a computer rendering of the school, and let's look at it different ways before we decide on a trim. Because the trim is not just the windows, but it's also the metallic material that it needs to blend with that makes up the front entrance, underside, and the ceilings of the overhangs around the school.
And the doors also?
And the doors.
And I also asked Jamie about walkway covers,
Right. Yes, ma'am.
that we wouldn't want to put a stark white walkway covers where nothing else is white. Okay.
Absolutely not. And we have an aluminum walkway cover specified. And so you get to pick colors, and included in those colors is a clear natural aluminum finish. It's not a painted steel. It's a higher grade than what you typically see.
Well,
Okay.
I don't
Well-
like mill finish, but I think when you provide us with the rendering, it'll be
Right.
easier to decide. And
Yeah.
if there's nothing else,
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, let's
I make
go ahead and do this a
motion,
step at a
we
time. Let's work
approve.
on the brick.
Do have want to bring one thing to your attention. This is a jumbo brick.
And-
The brick that will be used will be this.
that size.
Right, but that's what
The
they'll
smaller
look at,
brick.
so.
We put it together with
Do I have a motion to go with the recommendation?
I make that motion.
Do I heard a second.
One question.
Yes, sir.
Kelly, are you happy? Okay.
Were you gonna change it if she wasn't?
No, I don't think so. I just
Kelly.
ordered it on the books.
You know you should have said no. You should have said no just so we could see what he was gonna say next. Okay, I have a motion, a second on the floor. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Jimmy, could I ask a couple of things? Well, first off, what you were speaking of about the trim, we'll come back to that. I understand that. Could you come over and just provide us a quick update on timelines, where we're at on the school? We're on schedule? What's everything going on over there? I go by there, but just riding, you can't really tell.
I'm probably gonna have to defer to, Kelly's husband.
Is Brad?
Brad
Yeah, I
probably
see.
has
Okay,
a
well, Brad's
better
welcome to
handle
come up. Sure.
on where they are. And
Okay.
and we had struggled with some, with some issues early on with, the stormwater building permit, that sort of
Right.
thing. They have tried to work around it as hard as they can. We have all tried to work around,
Okay.
the delays we've experienced. But Brad can probably give a much better update.
Sure. Well, progress is moving very well now that we've got some permits in hand. We've got the foundations nearly complete on the 100 building, which is the center building that's really the heart of the school. It's got all the mechanical rooms, the boiler rooms, the gym, cafeteria, admin area. So we're wrapping those footings up here in the next week. We've got a lot of the deep sewer lines in the ground all throughout the building. We've got a lot of the storm sewer pipe all throughout the site. We're probably, almost halfway through with that. That's the big concrete pipe you see on site. So that's moving well. We are now about to start the foundations for the 300 wing, which is directly in the back. That's the pre-K and EC building. And we're working towards the existing playground of the new school now, getting those areas to grade. And then we've got under slab rough ends going on inside of building 100, so we'll be prepping for some slabs here soon on that building. And we've got structural steel showing up first part of June. So it's exciting to be able to stand some columns and go vertical.
It looks like a building then.
Yeah, it looked like a building then. So as far as the site is going, just mass grading is continuing. We've got one of the retention ponds dug up front, and we've got another one in the back that we've got to put a wall in for. And we've already got a tremendous amount of stone down on site, so that'll help us when we have adverse weather events. We can keep working. We've got good laydown areas, we're staging materials. We've got multiple contractors mobilized for this job, so it's picking up steam for the summer, and we want to keep it going. So thank you for these selections. We've got a lot more to do in the coming months, but we're getting those samples over to Jimmy's office.
So what I'm hearing is we will have a school next summer then.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
We're going to make sure of that.
Okay. Go ahead.
Turn your microphone.
So we can all hear you.
Okay. Want to ask you something. That big long ditch that's back there, what's going to happen to that?
Which area are you talking about?
Be-
Along Pennsylvania?
The 4 acres.
Back in the very back,
Right.
next to the backside of
Uh-huh.
Eastern, is what she's
That
talking
runs
about.
parallel to the road?
Yeah, the one that's next to the road, you're right.
The dirt road coming
The
in.
dirt road.
Yeah, I don't think there's any plans for us to do anything additional.
Or you're just gonna leave it open, okay, that's fine, that's fine.
Isn't that stormwater runoff?
I think it is.
Yeah, that's a protected.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's all that is.
Okay, all right, okay. Y'all almost made me forget my next question. Oh, do you think it's gonna be possible that we may be able to get that road paved? That road that's coming
that's
from
not gonna be
the
us.
64?
That's not gonna be us.
That's not part of this project.
I was gonna say, that's not
Who
gonna be.
project is,
It would be the city.
It'd be the city.
huh?
It would be the city.
Oh, it's the city, that's good enough, that's all I need to know.
That's right.
That's
Yeah.
all I need to know.
That road doesn't belong to Washington Elementary School.
That's it, that's very well. I just need to know who it belongs to.
So in the short term, still on time for August, or are we pushing hard?
We were pushing hard.
Right.
We talked with a couple of key subcontractors about helping us double up some manpower if needed to catch up. We have some weather days, but we all know the hurdles
hurdles we had up front to get the permit, but we're past that, and now we just gotta look ahead. So we built many schools with Mr. Hike. We know his details well, and so do these subcontractors. It's a great group of local subcontractors from Eastern North Carolina. They're excited to make this a reality. So we'll get it done. We need some help getting a few more things picked out. It'll take a long time to get once we make that order. So if we can get that behind us here in the next month or two, we're in good shape.
Just bring
We'd
it
be
to the
glad to
board.
help.
Put
Yeah,
it
just
together and bring it to us.
We'll pick it out. We'll get it
Okay.
done.
Thank you very much.
Thank
We
you so
appreciate
much.
it.
Pray no hurricanes this summer.
Yes.
Thank you,
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jimmy. Moving right along, I think, Ms. Potts, you will be up with a budget proposal for us.
Yes, sir. I
Budget
have
proposal request.
a Budget proposal request, yes, sir. So this is, just the format that we have been looking at, same figures. Last time I brought it to you, I had changed the retirement rate figures and the hospitalization figures. I have seen that on DPI's website, as well as, speaking with Jennifer Bennett with DPI. So I'm gonna keep those figures in there. Nothing has been added to this one, so, I've just asked for your approval.
And also, I've passed out a folder to you. This is the capital outlay projects as requested by principals and your director of maintenance. This is a document that's typically not reviewed by the board until after your county commissioners decide on what your local capital outlay funding would be. And then for those of you who are new, Mr. Hudson and also Ms. Davis, after you determine or are told what money you'll have, then the board walks back through the priority sheet and then starts giving and taking in that regard. So the $7.9 million worth of needs listed on the capital outlay, that typically falls in the range of the 5 to 8 million each and every year that we're looking at as we try to trim that number down. So in short, what we're asking for is your approval for the recommended budget as presented, meaning this document as presented would go to your county manager tomorrow with your approval tonight, which is within the general statute of providing it by May 15th. However, your county manager is anticipating it this week for his May 12th presentation to the county commissioners. Any difference in this would be to just figure out one column, but I'm recommending that you leave all 4 columns and send it to them as is.
Okay. Can I go first tonight? I know I'm acting as chairman, but I'm still not chairman. What is the thought process behind us leaving all 4 of these on here, rather than us choosing what we want to ask for? Meaning, could I ask you a question, Mr. Dunn?
Yes, sir.
And I'm reading off of here, so I'm assuming nothing's changed. We're looking at 67 positions, correct?
Yes, sir.
We discussed in a meeting earlier that we had identified 10. Does that number still stand?
Yes, sir.
So 67 becomes 57. So that's what we're trying to look to fund. Is
Yes,
that
sir.
the number we're still using, or is it a different number? Because what I say next depends on that number.
No, that hasn't changed.
Okay, so depending on that number then, if I'm looking at column 3, where it says saving 80% of the existing positions, the one just to its left would be saving 95% of 67. Because my thought process is, I want to save them all. I'm not looking, I want to make sure I say this correctly. I'm not looking to bargain ahead of time and do the commissioner's job for them. I'm doing the job of asking for what I need and putting it in their laps and let them decide what they want to give us, if they want to honor our request or not. So if I look at that, 80% of 57, since you've already identified 10, is 54 positions. So we need to make sure that we request at least column 3
I agree.
rather than anything else. I don't know how else to say it other than saying it, and I'm notorious for saying what I think. I don't even see why I put the 4th column on there for them to look at. That is not what I'm asking for. I don't want them to think. Now, I'm just one board member. I do not want them to think in any form or fashion that I'm asking for $16,815,000.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yes.
I agree.
I'm going to ask for 21,108 or depending on what the board says, I personally think 21,913 is the number you ought to ask for.
Yeah.
That covers all our positions. I don't have to look at teachers and say you don't have a job. And if they don't want to fund that, then I can say, well, we'll go from there.
Good point.
But that's my feelings, and I'd like to hear what the rest of the board has to say.
Well, I agree with Mr. Williams, but this is my first time working through this budget, and I will tell you, a lot of parts and pieces seem kind of backwards to me. But the math is pretty simple. If you look from 2021 to 2025, in what we've requested versus what we've actually received. So 2021, we asked for less than 1%. 22, we asked for less than 1% increase. 23, 1.5 roughly. Go right on down the list. And I'm pretty tired already of being called an idiot and we can't manage money and we're just throwing money down the tube. To me, the reality of this thing is I'd like for anybody, anywhere, to tell me anything you can think of that hasn't increased 3 to 5% since 2021. That's the reality of where we are. I don't believe we've been funded by the county to a substantial enough amount to even fund the unfunded mandates created by teacher pay raises from the state. If we were, we wouldn't be having this conversation. So our teachers obviously deserve the pay they're getting and more. And if you've looked at recent news, we're on the decline in where we stand across the country. So it's a budget. It's not hard math, but apply it to your own style of living. Think about your insurance. Think about, your cost of your utilities. And if you just look at that in our budget line items, they consume a substantial amount of money. So I agree with Mr. Williams. I mean, you can take the third column off and request all the way and let the commissioners figure it out.
Give them one column.
Yeah.
And may I add one more thing? And well, no, if anybody else has something to say first, please go ahead. Donna, you got anything?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good. I thought it was
And that's a great point, Daniel, and what you're looking at, I don't think everybody can see what I'm looking at out here. I wish you had it in your hand. There's 4 columns, and it starts with saving 100% of positions for $22,181,000, and it goes through the last column, saving none of the positions for $16,815,000. So if somebody looks at, let's just use that column I was using though, Daniel, $21,108,000, which would save the 54 positions, and we're down to 57 anyway. So that would pretty much covers right there. The difference between the 21,000,001 that we would ask for and the 16,000,000 and like 139, I think is what we got this year. People would say, oh no, you can't possibly ask for $5 million more. What we're asking for is the $1.5 million less we were funded each year that you just mentioned for the last 4 years. If that had been done, we wouldn't even be having this conversation.
It's a compounded problem that's been.
Absolutely. So I have my thoughts, and I'll take whatever the board goes, and I'll vote the way I want to vote. I say give them the column either 1, or you can go with the column I mentioned, but the rest of them need to come off. They need to see what we need. That's what we need, and we don't need to ask for less, because I'm looking at the people that we have right here. These are the people that I'm trying to help protect across the county. And I'm not gonna walk out that door asking for less than what I think I should be asking for.
And not just to protect these
I mean the whole
people,
county, all of us.
Protect our parents, our
Yes,
students,
right.
staff. If you like what your school system is, this is what we need. If you don't like it, you want class sizes to go up, our ability to teach and create environments conducive to teach, then don't fund it.
And
Yes,
just
that's
today,
where we are.
just today in bills that are being introduced in both the House and the Senate, you should all, if you subscribe to that, it's very interesting. I was explaining to someone near and dear to me about one of the bills proposes several different things for our public schools, none of which the state plans to pay for.
Exactly.
All of those things that were in those 3 sentences in that one bill being proposed were all what we call unfunded mandates. So if that passes, that's not even in this. That's across the board, an increase in money we would need to do to satisfy the state legislature who's got this in a bill, and it's an unfunded mandate, and it would have a pretty big impact on most of your rural school systems, because we're not going to have that kind of money. Yet we're going to be told we have to provide this.
Donald, you had a question.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that we're already in 5 unperforming schools. And to me, not to ask as much money as we need, instead of just the bare minimum, you know, what is that gonna do to our teachers and our education when we're cutting teachers and we've got underperforming schools? So we need to ask for as much money as we can. That was a good idea, Terry.
Thank you, Donald. And this has nothing to do with the county commissioners. I'm not pointing a finger at the county commissioners. But how many of you saw the press release that just came out in the last week where the state of North Carolina dropped to 43rd in teacher pay, 39th in beginning teacher pay? All I say to that is, when is enough enough? And we're going to stand up and fight for what our teachers deserve. Well, I can tell you when the time is, tonight. But here's what I suggest, and I'm not going to make the motion, but that column that says 95%, you don't have to go to the 100. The 95 covers the 57 positions that we have. That's the only one I personally would leave on this sheet, and I'd send it to them.
I'm in agreement with that. I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Donald.
I'm in agreement with that.
Thank you, Gary. Is that a second? Or I heard one over here.
Yes, second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second, and let me be, Donald, you're saying to
clarify.
leave the 95% column
Absolutely.
and remove the others?
Yeah.
Okay, not putting anything on your
One
motion. That's
column.
your motion, but I just
One
want to make
column.
sure I understood it correctly. Okay, I got a motion and a second. Anybody want to make a comment? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Send it to them.
Sorry, Christy, we're asking you to do something else, but you're
That's
really
all
just
right.
gonna,
That's pretty
It's
easy.
my
Delete
pleasure
3
to
things.
serve.
Yeah.
Delete
Thanks
3
for
and
letting me
print
be
it out.
part of your team.
I was gonna say, is she okay with that?
she's only done
Okay.
this about 20
Now-
times.
Now you're pulling a Gary.
Yeah, don't ask too many questions.
Okay. Field trips.
Northside High School field trip, FBLA national competition in Anaheim, California. 3 male students, 3 female students with chaperones for a plane ride, plus also an activity bus to get to the airport, June 28th through July 3rd.
Motion
Okay,
to approve.
they're covered. Motion? Got a motion?
Second.
Got a second.
yeah.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ms. Walker, would you put us in closed session, please?
I will, if I can find, here we go. I move that we go into closed session pursuant to General Statute 143-318.11A1 to prevent disclosure of confidential personnel files under General Statute 115C-321.
Second.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to go into closed session. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We're in closed session.